by a revolutionary electoral commission led by our stalwarts, with the technical expertise from people who understand and knows the elections work. It will be led by Comrade Stefani Kemp, and that day will then be concluded with the International Solidarity Evening. You are also invited to that. The following day, of course, will then receive messages from the YCL in the morning, 8:30, and fraternal messages from Sanko Kosatu, the ANC. Sanko, it will be represented by the General Secretary, Comrade Skombozo Mpanza. Kosatu, they will give us the name. The ANC, the Deputy President will represent the ANC, and thereafter we'll have presentation of the finance report, and thereafter discussion and adoption of the report. After lunch, we'll have state of the organization report, as well as its discussions, and thereafter nomination of party officials by the Revolutionary Commission. That will conclude day 2 of political activities, which is day 3 of Congress.
You want to indicate which is open there?
Oh yes, the presentation part, it's open. On the program, we are having about 49 items throughout Congress. Some of them, it's those areas around, for instance, 49 items. You can look immediately after the number of the item that we'll have a session where we indicate the session whether it is closed or open. We'll appreciate, we always have very good and cordial relations with members of the media. I can tell you that in one conference, I don't want to expose the journalist of our Young Communist League, we asked the journalist to leave, and one journalist hid behind a banner and sat there with the computer throughout the closed session. It was a transgression, but we just asked her to leave nicely. We hope you don't do that. No, you must know that we look after those areas as well. Then the rest, I think, day 3 will then have the presentation on the SACP and state power. I know that you have been anticipating this report. Comrade Jeremy will lead that discussion, and thereafter we'll have a discussion or presentation on the Organizational Review Commission. Just for our purposes of writing, it's important to link the constitutional amendments discussions that are taking place, which will be presented, although they will be presented in plenary. We will be able to brief you about that. They have a relationship with this item, although they are not entirely. The presentation of organizational review, it's not about constitutional amendment. It does have an implications on constitutional amendment and vice versa. And thereafter, we will then have a presentation on state capture by a group of academics. The one that they did for the South African Council of Churches. We have decided, given its significance in the current discourse, to allow them to come and address Congress. And you'll notice that it is the first time that a Congress of South African Communist Party, apart from its own internal reports and reports from the Alliance, has requested people from outside to address plenary of Congress. The same will be a presentation by the stalwarts and veterans of our movement, who will also be accorded a platform to address Congress plenary. After that, Congress will adjourn into commissions, or will outline commissions, and thereafter the Electoral Commission will come and discuss with Congress. From there, we'll start having commissions. You will see that Congress will have commissions for a day and a half. That is full day and as well as a half day, considering discussion documents that all of you should have received by now. If you have not, we'll gladly offer you a copy. And thereafter, on Friday, from 2:30, we'll start receiving commission reports and resolutions into Saturday until 11:30, when we'll then receive final presentations of organizational awards, and thereafter announcement of the leadership, the new leadership, and presentation of the Congress declaration, and thereafter addressed by the newly elected General Secretary. That will then conclude our Congress on Sunday. We'll appreciate... on Saturday. We'll appreciate your stay with us throughout. We know you get weary of covering congresses. You have been at a policy conference for the whole week. Immediately it finished, you are now coming to our Congress. But it's our joint work, joint responsibilities from our different areas of deployment. As workers, we are also deployed in the media sphere. So we hope you will bear with us and cover Congress throughout. Briefly, that's that, and thank you very much also for your attendance.
Thank you very much. Let's take questions, clarity-seeking questions. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just say your name and the media house you come from and ask your question.
Okay. My name is Tsepo Itanem from the SABC. On the issue of constitutional amendments, are you able to share with us as to which issues will come under discussion, and if at all, does that include the call that the 7GS be permanent and not in government?
Thank you. Number 2.
Genevieve Quinton from Business Day. Just on the question on leadership, I know a few weeks ago you spoke about a consensus. A year ago, GS, you said, and it was July 2016, you told Sunday Times that you wouldn't stand again and it was time for new leadership. We're getting the impression that the leadership is going to stay the same. If you can give us maybe an indication of what's happening with that?
Just before we go to number 3, I would like to take that one quickly. There was a handover of keys to the new SACP building. And the General Secretary at the handover by POPCO said that he always wished that the day he departs from the position, the SACP has its own building, and that the handover of the keys made that dream come true. And the media worker who wrote the story used the following words: Nzimande gave the strongest indication yet that he will not be returning. That's not what Nzimande said. It was an interpretation by the media worker. So we had to clarify that. Number 3. Yes.
Thank you, Alex. Anop Septi and Brasoli says the Deputy President of the ANC will represent the ANC. Any reason that the President of the ANC will not represent the ANC? And exactly what conditions do you give the ANC in your letter inviting anyone but you? Thank you.
Actually, it's the same question. So I can just add to yours and say, what will be your attitude, because you've left it open and said ANC speaker, if the ANC decides to send President Jacob Zuma on address?
Thank you very much. Let me allow the leadership to take those questions, but I'm sure you noticed that on COSATU we said COSATU speaker, on SANCO we said SANCO speaker, and on the ANC we said the ANC speaker. But you will have the answers. Yes, in any party, in no particular order, the leadership.
You want to say what? So, on the issue of leadership, okay. Obviously, that's in the hands.
Hold on.
I'm a little rubbish there. But I'm flattered.
And I think this one's it.
Okay. We obviously expected this question, which is a recurring question, about the leadership. So the first and obvious point to make is that the election of the officials of the SACP and indeed of the incoming Central Committee is in the hands of the delegates. And we are also delegates. We are also voting delegates. But we are outnumbered by far by branch member delegates and so forth. So that matters in their hands. But there is the question of availability. So let me upfront indicate that I am not going to be available to return to my current position. So we can categorically say that whatever is the fate of the other comrades up on the table, which is in the hands of the thing, there's at least one non-availability. And it's been a difficult choice for me because, and I think it is for all of us, because I think all of us recognize three different imperatives, basically, and that's also the strong pressure that we're getting from delegates and even from journalists. One, obviously, it's very important for a communist party, well, for any political party, but particularly ours, to ensure that there's renewal, that we bring in fresh blood, and what is very encouraging, having been a member of the Communist Party since 1968, when there were 30 or so members inside of South Africa, and probably a 1,000 or 2,000 in exile, okay, that it's very important to have a degree of continuity so that one passes on lessons and so forth. Secondly, stability is very important, and I think we, as a Communist Party, we're very proud to say, and we think our Congress will prove this, and not just in terms of elections and so forth and who gets elected where, but of the other two or three, if you include Sanko, formations within the alliance, we are easily the most unified and most stable of the formations. The cynics amongst you will say, well, the bar is set very low, and there's a lot of instability and a lot of our alliance partners, which is regrettable and problematic. And a lot of ANC comrades, for instance, or COSATU comrades who are not SACP members, are watching this Congress very closely, and part of what leads them to watch the Congress very closely is precisely the sense that we're not fighting each other over positions, we're not divided on those issues, and although we've got some nice debates about electoral prospects and modalities and so on, those are being conducted with a great deal of unity because the choices are complex and not straightforward. So it's to get that balance between stability, continuity, and renewal. And at the end of the day, the decision will be made partly by some of us who have indicated. Obviously, if I'm nominated, will stand for the incoming Central Committee if I'm nominated. But do feel that in my case it's time after 22 years in my particular Deputy General Secretary's position to step down, and also to do so competently because I've seen the amazing emergence of younger comrades, who are very militant and who will do a better job than I will certainly do. So it's with a sense of pride that I'm stepping down. So that's how we want to answer the question. So there's not going to be just a mechanical return. And I think certainly the outgoing Central Committee in its political report will also indicate to delegates that we are not thrusting, as the officials or the outgoing Central Committee, any choices on them. It's for them to make the choice in a situation where we're in a very fluid and dynamic situation. I mean, the crisis inside of the ANC in particular is not a secret, and a lot of within the party, but also from outside of the party, there's a lot of concern that we are not too disruptive in terms of leadership changes and so on, so that there is that continuity. So that, yeah. I hope that gives some indication of how we...
Yes.
Is everyone else still up for nomination?
Yes, yes.
Well, I don't know, but
Okay.
I've read that. It's up to the... They're indicating that if they're nominated, I suppose they will say. Okay.
I saw Comrade Soli indicating in the city press. I would like to give him the opportunity to indicate, perhaps on behalf of all other officials.
Yeah, I think it's important that also to just say
You should be sitting on that side because you're a silent partner in the debate.
Largely understandable. Comrade Jeremy is saying Comrade Blade should be sitting this side because he's the silent partner.
He's the silent partner.
Obviously, because I think sometimes an impression has been put too much on him as a person on this question of leadership, as if he's a dictator who decides for the Communist Party. And that's not the case. We have indicated even previously the fact that part of this unity that Comrade Jeremy is talking about of the SACP, while it is attributable to the collective as a whole, the leadership of the Central Committee, our leadership structures in provinces, regions and branches, the party is still led by the General Secretary, its leader, Comrade Blade. And I think it's an important achievement that we must not take it away for this capacity of the Communist Party to unite itself under its leadership across the country. So we must indicate that that important achievement must not be lost. Hence, our comrades in the alliance are struggling to unify the organizations, largely because of leadership interferences in the structures of the organization, having preferences of this and that leader. It doesn't happen like that in the Communist Party. They sometimes scavenge around provinces to try and grab this and that particular province. It's not like that in the Communist Party. And I think it's an important message that revolutionary movements can unify themselves. So the discussion on organizational renewal takes into account the points that Comrade Jeremy is raising. You must also appreciate that Comrade Blade, despite that he has led the party for a long time, is relatively a young comrade.
But not longer than Moses Kotane.
No, of course, not longer than Moses Kotane. Moses Kotane went a bit far. But Comrade Blade is relatively a young comrade. In fact, we get shocked at times when we have meetings with international communist organizations and workers' parties. And they look at our party and they say, this party is too young. And we say, yes, maybe the reason why it will have staying ability for the future. So, ultimately, as Comrade Jeremy was indicating, the collective leadership of the Communist Party have indicated possibly their availability, particularly members of the Politburo. They've indicated that possibility, but the decision to be elected or not to be elected largely rests with delegates who nominate individuals and their acceptance. I did indicate when I had an interview with a journalist from City Press, did indicate that, I think, Thengiwe, did indicate to her that personally I will not be available to contest Comrade Blade. Not because I'm intimidated to do so, but because of the political unity of the Communist Party, and also because I had indicated I worked with Comrade Blade for all these periods since 1998, after I was elected General Secretary with Comrade Jeremy. Comrade Jeremy left for Parliament when Blade was reversed back to HQ. we worked very well together over these years. And also we have developed a relationship, political and personal, a bond that it's unbreakable. And that bond cannot be broken either even by factions or whatever. It's a very strong political bond, a bond of respect. I worked in that head office of the Communist Party, a very young comrade, and he groomed me. And at some point, as I indicated in the article, I was accused of being blade slacky. Maybe that's right, being blade slack, and I did indicate I had no problem to be the leg of the General Secretary of a Communist Party. So there's no problem.
We can confirm that you're capable of being anybody's lackey.
So there's no problem about that, but the bottom line is that we are bringing a relatively united organization to the Congress. And to us as a 13th Congress Central Committee, it's a very proud moment and achievement that we'll give to our delegates. As the issue of constitutional amendment that was raised, maybe I just to touch on that. It's not much about the full-timeness of the Secretariat. There is a full-time member of the Secretariat. Myself, for instance, we have other comrades, Comrade Reneva, who is a member of our Central Committee. In fact, it's important for the media to understand the different operations of the SACP and other organizations. All members of the Central Committee, of the Politburo of the SACP, are called secretaries. The Secretary for International Relations and Affairs is Comrade Chris Mahlaku, is full-time. The Secretary for Ideology and Political Education, Comrade Charles Situbi, he does constant work with of the head office, not full-time necessarily, but there's also Secretary of a coordinator of the Central Committee, Comrade Reneva Fori, she's full-time as well, and several others. So we're led by secretaries, but constitutionally in the Secretariat, the Constitution indicates that one of the secretaries must be full-time. And I've been mandated to fulfill that responsibility by the 13th Congress Central Committee, which made me full-time, and therefore I'm the one that spoke perhaps much more than other general secretaries, the first deputy as well as the general secretary and other secretaries of the Central Committee, and therefore maybe made an impression that I'm now available to contest. That's perhaps one of the impressions that it created. But that's not the case. It's not meant for that. It's related to organizational review, which could change the manner in which the party organization is organized. We felt that that's why all the time that commission present first in plenary, so that when the commission sits after during the period of Congress, they can now focus on organizational review. One of the discussions that is critical for that commission is whether to adopt organizational review discussion documents before constitutional amendments. The organizational review discussion may reconstitute even the numbers of Central Committee, the organs of the Central Committee. There are a lot of proposals in that document. It's in your pack. You can read it. So because of that, Congress felt that it needed to discuss that before at the constitutional amendment period, before that discussion is taken into account. Because if they do not do that, when they elect leadership, if, for instance, it decides to expand the Central Committee, that should be considered when the Electoral Commission processes the leadership question. As for the reason why the President of the ANC is not attending, I think it should be for very obvious reasons for the Communist Party. The Communist Party have asked the President to step down as President of the Republic, and we have invited our ally, the ANC, to address Congress. And of course, we felt that it is important, particularly after the fiasco of the May Day celebrations in Mangaung, COSATU invitation to the ANC, which deployed its president. We felt that whilst we had initially invited the ANC and leave it to them to decide who should attend, we felt appropriate that we needed to inform the ANC that perhaps any other delegate could be much better than perhaps sending the president, whom we have asked to step down. That it will be important that we accord our ally, the ANC, the necessary courtesy to receive their delegates who should address our Congress. And therefore, we have received information that it will be the Deputy President who will address Congress. But we must indicate that indeed we did write a letter to the ANC to indicate the fact that it will be preferable if it is not the President who is sent here. And I hope that the headlines doesn't elevate this question, because we have made it very clear over a period of time as a Communist Party in this regard. So it only makes it easier for the ANC delegation here to know that it is welcome. These are our comrades. We are all in our own right. You know that the mother movement is the ANC, is at the core of the alliance, which is based on dual membership. We are members of the ANC, members of COSATU are also members of the ANC, members of SANCO are members of the ANC. Centrally, we are all members of the ANC. So the mother movement, our ANC, is much welcome to participate in this Congress, and we'll listen attentively to what they have to say when their delegate addresses Congress. Yeah.
Can I say something without... my voice is horrible.
And we want to save it for tomorrow.
Yes, that's right. Maybe just to repeat something that we said on Friday, was it? When we had an exchange. Without justifying anything, I don't want to speak personally out of 10, because one has been under a very difficult whip of the party. I have my own personal preference. I wish I could be joining Jeremy out of the officials. But there is a big discussion, the delegates will decide. There is a big debate in the party at the moment. There is a view which says, well, we all agreed we are in a very difficult situation, extremely difficult political situation in the country and in the alliance. So the debate amongst delegates, and there are different views. As the party, we are not short of leaders who can rise to these levels. Not at all. We want to make that clear. The debate is, Comrade Jeremy was hinting at this very strongly. Do you change or not change leadership when the truck is going down at a fast speed on a slippery slope? Do you change or not? That's the issue. For instance, the next 6 months are almost unpredictable in terms of what's going to happen. There are these rolling emails. We don't know who will be left standing once all these emails are finished. Honestly, I think that sometimes I think about it. I wonder who will be left standing.
Well, we will.
We will, yes. Well, I mean, outside us.
General.
You know, yeah.
Because we're not the truck, by the way.
That's right. That's right. But it affects us.
Yeah.
There's the ANC conference in December. We don't know whether the ANC will manage to unite itself or will smash itself. Whether you will elect a leadership that will be capable of uniting the ANC or you will elect a faction. And as the SACP have said, we are not going to be aligned with a faction. If we had done that before, we are no longer prepared to do that. So there are all these imponderables that then impact on the discussion on leadership of the SACP. There is no fight. And there is a general understanding. Of course, Jeremy has been quite militant to say, no, count me out. I'm the worst, I'm 22 years. Maybe when I reach 22 years, if I get elected again, I'll be as militant as you have on this issue. But those are key considerations that the party has been grappling with, and these delegates will actually be grappling with. In the end, it's their decision. I just thought I needed to repeat that to those who may not have been there, and be open with you.
I must just also indicate that outside of the officials who are addressing you on this question, there are other Politburo members who also indicated the same feelings that the GS is communicating. But at the end of the day, the SACP will decide. What is very important is that changes must provide certainty and must be managed in a manner that will strengthen rather than weaken the party. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Did you have lunch? Did we have lunch? Did we have lunch?
We're trying to catch you up there.
The problem that your question is on the record.
Okay, that's fine. No, okay. Yeah, let us ask questions in that order. We all know that food is the basis of all struggles. And how much is given to another is the contention of inequality. In that order, number 1 to number 5.
Thanks, Clement Mangatela from Eyewitness.
Sorry, yes.
I just want to ask about the Alliance Political Summit, or Alliance Political Council that was supposed to be held. How critical would that have been, having that Alliance Council before this conference or this Congress of the SACP? Because as you said, we'll also be discussing the state of the Alliance. Are you happy that, or are you satisfied that you are holding this Congress having not taken part in that Alliance Political Council? And is there any indication from the ANC on when exactly they're going to hold this council? We've spoken about the importance of holding that gathering. My second question is on General Secretary. You've previously stated that now that you've asked, the SACP has asked the President to step down, and he's made it very clear that he won't be stepping down. You said there's a need to come up with ways, or the SACP needs to come up with another strategy to push for this call for the President to step down. Will that be under discussion at this conference? Will you be discussing ways to push this call for the President to step down? Thanks.
Thank you. The second question.
We know that we've been hearing that SACP might possibly leave the alliance. Is this something that will be discussed if a faction emerges at the end of the ANC?
Okay, thank you. I had an interview with you on that one, and we said there is no motion for the SACP to leave the alliance. But we will take that question.
He's testing to see whether we'll give a different response.
Number 3.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Nomani from KCFM. General Secretary, I want to understand from you.
That's KCFM from my township.
Yes.
This is KCFM from Ekurhuleni.
That's for the Kasi people.
Yeah, they are the hosts. Yeah, it's Ekurhuleni represent. Yeah.
Now, Secretary General, you are saying that the SACP will not be in alliance with a faction. If that faction will lead the ANC, what then will happen? Can you please tell us what really will happen in the alliance?
Thank you. Number 3.
It's Alvin Cynthia from SABC TV News. Okay, so the discussion will not be about the SACP pulling out of the alliance, but the discussion, I presume, would be about the SACP contesting the elections. How does the SACP then form part of an alliance when contesting the elections with another alliance partner instead of pulling out? Isn't it time to say that the alliance is dead, and that's the reason why that the SACP should contest the elections as an independent party? And the final question is on what Mr. Mapaila was saying now on the issue around leadership and the unity that the SACP is experiencing at this moment. Would you say that the ANC itself should go through that same modus operandi that the SACP has, that keep the leaders there, keep the leadership stable for a certain period so that you have continuity, and with that continuity there would be unity as well? Should the ANC go to its elective conference, for instance, having one person standing as the president of the ANC or nominee?
Okay, number 4. Number 4, somewhere here?
Number 5.
Number 5. Number 4, okay, let's take number 4.
No, there wasn't 4.
No, there's no number 4.
Okay, let's allow you to be number 4.
It's quick.
Yeah.
Marika from Jacaranda. Just your comment on the MKVA.
The comment on the MKVA, okay, number 5.
What about MKVA?
They issued a statement saying that they will not be attending, okay? Number 5.
It's mainly listened one from Highway Radio in Durban. I'm glad that Bala touched the issue that is, I would like to know if one of the officials that is going to be elected on Thursday is also nominated in December for 5th election. Will that official stand for the top 6 position?
Okay, number 6
Which official?
and number 7.
Any official that will be elected.
Yes, okay.
SACP.
Yeah, if any SACP official is nominated in December, will that official stand? Okay. Yes.
Sasha from the Business Day. I just wanted to check whether the SACP was going to participate in the Futures Conference that was organized by the SABC campaign, and also whether you are going to be participating in the Veterans Consultative Conference that will be taking place in October. I guess it's in line with your discussion on state power.
Thank you. Let's take the last question. And
mine is just a request for you to say a few words about Ma'am Emma Mashini, who was passed on.
Okay. Thank you for that request. You remind me, I was working in a factory, and one day a militant shop steward was representing a worker. So I was an alternate shop steward at the hearing, and that militant shop steward said, you must fire me because he violated procedure. And the experienced manager said, okay, fine, your request is granted. The militant shop steward took the matter to the CCMA, and then at the CCMA they played the record of the militant shop steward demanding to be fired. They said, no, that was your request, it was granted. But this is a different one. Okay. The leadership?
Shall I kick off on some of the alliance issues?
Yeah.
Okay. Since I'll be presenting, because I'm the full guy in the Congress, presenting the so-called debate about the party and state power, as if state power is all about elections, which I don't think it is, but that's another matter. So let me touch on some. My comments will also add otherwise. On the alliance issues and how they might relate to the election and a number of other issues. So first of all, on the Alliance Political Council, the party is indeed frustrated that scheduled Alliance Political Council has been postponed. And I think one needs to ask the ANC why it's doing that. Clearly the ANC is not ready to meet its alliance partners at the highest level. One assumes that's the reason. Is it regrettable? Yes, it is. But I don't think it would change the outcome of our decision and discussions here at our Congress, because it's not just about whether a meeting has happened or not, as desirable as it is for that meeting to occur. Is the party contemplating leaving the alliance? No. We value the alliance. It's a very important alliance. Strategically, all of our discussion documents indicate that we are committed to what we in our jargon call a national democratic struggle, and what we say is a radical second phase of the national democratic revolution. And that requires a broad national democratic front of forces, basically. And the current format in which that occurs, as we all know, is this alliance. However, one of the things that we have been saying in the last couple of years is that neither the National Democratic Struggle nor the alliance belongs to the ANC. Historically, the ANC has shown the capacity to unite the country, but also, or a large part of the country, but also to unite its alliance. And that's often because of an important role that the Communist Party has played historically in the 60s, in the 40s, and many other times in which, as communists, we've helped the ANC to build its capacity to unite a broader range of forces. We want to be a communist party. We don't want to be a broad church, okay? But we recognize the importance of having a broad cross-class alliance of forces, or coalition of forces, whatever you want to call it, given the massive legacy which still persists of racial oppression and all of the things that flow from it, racialized inequality, racialized poverty, and so forth. So what does the future hold? And that's the big debate that we're having. If the ANC collapses, and there's no guarantee that it won't, because on its current trajectory, it's in serious, serious problems. If it carries on its current trajectory, heavens knows what will emerge in December, if there is a December elective conference. Even that is something that we, as the Communist Party, are not necessarily taking for granted. So we are not going to, as a Communist Party, push the ANC over the cliff. But there are forces inside of the ANC who are trying to drive it over the cliff, frankly. So if the ANC implodes, and we don't rule that out, we don't want that, but if it implodes, then it will be necessary to reinvent something like an ANC. But whether that will assume the form of an alliance of forces or a coalition of forces, all of those remain very uncertain, which is why we're saying, as Comrade Blade has said, we're going into a very uncertain period, not just as the alliance, not just as the Communist Party, as South Africa. And so even before we get to the election issue, what are the priorities? So one of the priorities that the Communist Party has been talking about, we've not necessarily used this language, but let me use it now, is that it's absolutely important to form the broadest patriotic front in South Africa, okay, around the defense of the Constitution and our democracy, because that's being threatened. And that will include alliances with Save South Africa forces, with Business Leadership South Africa, who came to our Imbizo as the Communist Party, the faith-based organizations, many of whom are not pro-ANC and certainly are not not communists, okay, not in their remotest dreams. But they recognize the role that the Communist Party has been playing in the defense of the democracy and of our Constitution. And I think a large number of ANC delegates at last week's National Policy Conference also are recognizing that reality, that we've given them a voice, given them some courage to speak out against the worst forms of state capture, the worst forms of populist demagogy and so on, which are lurking around, okay. So we need, as South Africans across the board, including journalists who are also confronted with right-wing fascism, basically, masquerading as African nationalism or Africanism or whatever. We need to unite around the defense of our constitutional rights, all of us as South Africans, threatened by certain forces. And the paradox for us as the Communist Party in alliance with the ANC is those forces are located partly in Saxonwold, but partly inside of the ANC and inside of the state itself. So that creates a dilemma, but one that we must be prepared to identify and speak up with. And I think that we've been doing that. Some would say a little bit late in the day, but we've been doing it, certainly. And so we see an important role. Now, that's got nothing to do with elections. We don't expect to go into elections with the South African Council of Churches or Business Leadership South Africa and so on, or your newspapers, okay, many of which will be skeptical, although I noticed the Sunday Independent, very interesting. I'm not sure if this is a sign of the hegemony of socialist ideas or something, but on the front page of the Sunday Independent, Socialist Zodwa looks to the future in this headline. So I think they've been socialized. But perhaps perhaps socialism is the new flavor of the term. So keep the socialist headlines and front page stories going. We support that. Now, what will we need? Okay, that's from Saxonville. Somebody. No, it's from David.
That's Cassie style. It's Cassie style.
Okay. Now,
yeah, it's Cassie style.
Our deep hope is that the ANC in December shows the capacity. You see, there was another question which says, shouldn't the ANC follow the example of the party and basically return a kind of unified and much the same leadership? That's not our problem in the SACP. We're unified. We're not fighting each other. We're not divided, and we're not paralyzed. But if you look at the top six in the ANC, it's no secret that there's paralysis because they're divided. And it reminds us, those of us who were in the National Executive Committee in 2007 and preceding 2000, the same story, is that when you have a divided leadership, the organization itself suffers, becomes factionalized, is unable to make clear decisions, is unable to move. It gets pulled in contradictory directions all the time. That's not our problem. In our view, although we don't want to tamper, it's an ANC process, we're ANC members, and we'll take part in that respect. We don't want to tamper with what the lineup is and who emerges. But what must emerge, as far as we're concerned, is a leadership in the ANC that is capable of renewing, reviving the ANC, dealing forcefully with state capture or corporate capture of the organization, dealing forcefully with corruption, and advancing a national democratic program with which we won't agree on every detail necessary as a Communist Party. We see our job as pushing things to the left. So hopefully that is the outcome that we see in December, if there's a December. But if there isn't, then we're into a very different and complicated ballgame. And even if there is that decent outcome, as the Communist Party, we recognize that it's important to have a left axis, as we've described it in the past, of within the alliance. So that was the role that COSATU and the SACP played in the run-up to 2007, the Polokwane conference of the ANC. And we need to strengthen left and socialist forces in our country, in our alliance, not as a faction, but as to ensure that this broad front, which is what a national democratic struggle is about, doesn't go off in directions which are problematic and which just compound the ongoing problems of unemployment, inequality, and so forth. Sorry, that's a whole mouthful, because you see I'm rehearsing what I'm going to say on Thursday. So I'm trying it out with yourselves, and you'll give me feedback as to whether this is adequate. Are there other things that we need to say on this matter? I'm sure there's lots to say, but that's a different. So will the party contest elections on its own? Some comrades say on our own. We say, but what do you mean by on our own? Porkball, if my pronunciation is. We're not porkball, okay? Okay. It would even if it was under the banner of the Communist Party, let's say, an election contest, and there's no reason why they shouldn't. We have every right to contest elections, but we wouldn't want to be just marching behind a red flag on our own. We would want to be part of a united front, a progressive front of socialist or left-leaning forces and so forth. How electorally that would express itself has a lot to do with how the cookie crumbles, including in December and beyond December. So the advice, which may or may not be heeded by our Congress, that we will be taking to our Congress as the outgoing Central Committee, is let's not make too many firm decisions about elections in 2019, assuming there will be elections in 2019, if we lose our constitution, if there's ongoing state capture and so on, where are we? But let's not make hard and fast decisions here. But that's the proposal we'll be putting to our central about the modalities within which the party contests elections in 2019. But let's keep an eye open. Let's explore the pros and cons of different formulations, and let's fight very hard to make sure that our alliance, which we value and for which we've shed blood and gone to jail and into exile, that our alliance and the leader of the alliance currently, the ANC, shows the ability to renew itself and so forth. But we can't put all our bets on that horse, but given the signs and uncertainties. So there was a lot. You can see I'm rehearsing here.
Maybe just on perhaps the other questions. I think this question often a party official who happens to get nominated for, I think it's a loaded question. I'm not saying you have no right to ask it. If you ask me, I'm not standing for any position of an ANC official. Which, by the way, also relates to an article that I saw saying, if I leave as General Secretary, that would be the end of my political career. Firstly, I don't regard politics as a career. Secondly, for as long as there is a South African Communist Party, I will always have a political home, if that is what is meant. I will always be active and have a political home, irrespective of whether I serve as General Secretary or as a member of the Central Committee or as a member of a PEC. That is I want to make this clear, because sometimes this narrative gets repeated all the time. I have no such ambitions. As a matter of fact, some of the debates we are having is that we have lots of other interesting things which we can do to support the party, even if one is no longer in a senior position. You know, all of us, I'm sure, we have that. Myself, personally, I love my academic and research work, big time. I would like to be supervising masters and PhDs of young party intellectuals, you know, doing a lot of things. Jeremy, I know, he's crazy about political education, which you can do even if we are no longer in a position. So I want to try. It's very difficult to disabuse people as if we've got these huge ambitions, you know, to be in the ANC's top 6, you know.
Who would want to be there?
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought that I needed. Now, I can't remember the Gussie Township. What was your question? Gussie Radio. Gussie FM, sorry.
My question was to say, you are saying that if the ANC again elects faction in December, then you are not going to be allied with faction.
No. We hope many other people also in the ANC will take a similar line. That we're an ANC, we are not a faction. So that's the short answer to that. We must yeah?
Which of the current people being talked about represents a faction? Which will not represent a faction? ANC is factionalized by the redemption.
We are innocent observers. We aren't even aware of names that are No, I mean it's obvious.
And we will deal with that if we get there. That is our answer. We must express our condolences to the Mashinini family. It's sad, but the old lady made her own contribution as a leader of the trade union movement in this country, and in fact is part of the early pioneers of the trade union movement, coming from the ranks of women of our country. Now, I think Comrade Jeremy has actually covered all else. I just thought those were the gaps. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
just the last one on the Save South Africa thing. Of course, the new Central Committee will discuss.
MK, answer MKVA as well, your friends.
No, the first thing is that yes, the current leadership has been having discussions with comrades in Save South Africa. For instance, when we had a march on the 7th of April to Pretoria, it was a discussion that we held with them. So those discussions will continue, particularly when we were defending our democracy and our constitution. And if they are in that space and that platform, we'll definitely work with them. But we'll evaluate every program that is on the table from time to time and have a discussion on that. We've also been discussing with the ANC veterans, the 101. As you now know, they are on the program to address conference. The new leadership will also have a discussion with them post-conference, we believe, Congress, to engage with them on all other issues that they are raising, to try and find all possibilities to unite our movement. The issue around MKVA pulling out, of course, it's regrettable that the comrades have decided to take that particular position. It's important to indicate the fact that the establishment of MK was a joint decision of the SACP and the ANC. In fact, the SACP, at the time that MK was established, had long actually established underground machinery and possibilities. You will know that we're already banned for almost 10 years and we're underground, and that is why its initial headquarters was the Communist Party headquarters in Rivonia at Lilliesleaf Farm. So MK has got strategic relevance and importance to the Communist Party because it's our own baby. And I think that it's regrettable that because of factions, the comrades believe that perhaps they may not be welcome. We'll welcome all former combatants of Umkhonto Sizwe.
Real ones.
Real ones. And of course...
and you're welcome too. You two are welcome. We start with you.
So it's regrettable that they won't be. We have also, of course, asked our comrades from the MK Council to be available. Those who are willing to come, we hope they would have registered by now. So we'll discuss even the conditions that faces combatants of our movement. So that's regrettable that they will not be here, but obviously they can't disassociate the Communist Party from that glorious history of MK. It's impossible because through MK combatants, you can go and check every single major unit of MK, and I can say that with absolute authority. Every major critical unit of MK had communist combatants. That is why, in fact, to just throw you a little bit in, we always pay tribute to our MK combatants. Last year, the Central Committee honored the special unit of MK, which was with the current Chief of Staff of MK, who was in that special unit for their work underground. So they always remain special to us, and they are always welcome to our conference.
And of course, there are those who are voting delegates to this Congress, and we will start with you by, of course, welcoming you. Let me take this opportunity.
And of course, there's a Commander Teenage here, who was the Deputy Chairperson of Comrade Kebi, and next to him sits Comrade Tebogo Padu, who drafted the main draft of the last 4 manifestos of the ANC, a party activist, MK combatant, shared camps with both of the comrades, and that one, Tebogo, was trained in the Soviet Union. It's a young, brilliant party activist. So there's a MK combatant. They're here. Commander Teenage, many others.
Who isn't a teenager, by the way?
Who's not a teenager? It's an old man. So the MK combatants are here. Yeah, no prices.
The real ones. Okay. Let's close the briefing. Let's not drag it too long. On a daily basis, as and when it becomes necessary, we will indicate a date before that we propose to have a briefing session, especially after these major reports that will be presented in the plenary. Thank you very much.
We are cutting away from the live press conference of the SACP from Birchwood in Kempton Park, which has just come to an end. So it has just emerged that the MKVA will not be present at this conference, as we have heard Solima Paila alluding to that fact following a question from one of the journalists at that press conference. And Dr. Blake Zimbande saying that he's not having any political ambition to stand for the position, any position at the top 6 at the ANC. And we will be having our program starting just in a moment now.